I'm Michelle in Boston.
And I'm Tequina Boston. Invite historical drama fans you know to subscribe to Historical Drama with the Boston Sisters wherever they enjoy their favorite podcast. Subscribers receive notifications about new episodes and bonus content.
Sign up for our newsletter on our webpage at michonnebostongroup.com/Boston Sisters or on our Instagram bio link at Historical Drama Sisters and receive news and announcements about upcoming podcasts and historical drama activities. Enjoy the podcast, and thank you for listening. Welcome to Historical Drama with the Boston Sisters. I'm Michelle in Boston.
And I'm Tequina Boston. In this podcast, we're in conversation with Constanza Romero to talk about The Piano Lesson, the film adaptation of the Pulitzer Prize-winning play by American playwright August Wilson, produced for the screen by Denzel Washington, directed by Malcolm Washington, and streaming on Netflix. Constanza Romero is August Wilson's widow, an executive producer for the film The Piano Lesson, and executive director of the August Wilson Legacy LLC. She has overseen countless productions of August Wilson's 10-play American Century Cycle nationally and abroad. Romero holds a Master of Fine Arts degree from Yale School of Drama and lives in Seattle, Washington.
The film adaptation of The Piano Lesson is based on the late August Wilson's 1987 play of the same name. August Wilson said of his 10-play cycle, "Put them all together, and you have a history." The August Wilson African American Cultural Center in the playwright's home of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, describes The Piano Lesson as a story where, quote, "two worlds collide, the American South, entangled in the memory and heartbreak of slavery and sharecropping, and the promise of the industrial North, alive with potential opportunities. The Great Migration lies omnipresent. The motivations between adult siblings, Berniece and boy Willie, surrounding their familial musical instrument, lie at the heart of the play's conflict, and again, these viewpoints force audiences to choose sides. Should the family hold tightly to the soul vessel of its ancestral past, its stories, and its evocations? Or should they exhaust every opportunity for ownership of land, potential prosperity, and even, arguably, retribution?" End quote.
Directed by Malcolm Washington, who co-wrote the screenplay adaptation with Virgil Williams, the 2024 film The Piano Lesson features John David Washington as Boy Willie, Danielle Deadwyler as his sister Berniece Charles, Samuel L. Jackson as Doaker Charles, Ray Fisher as Lymon, Michael Potts as Whining Boy Charles, Corey Hawkins as Avery Brown, Skylar Aleece Smith as Maretha Charles, and Erykah Badu makes an appearance as club singer Lucille.
Welcome, Constanza, to Historical Drama with the Boston Sisters.
Hi, Michonne. Hi, Tequina. It's very nice to be here with you.
And it's an honor to be here with you.
Yes, yes. The Piano Lesson, very special play. In some ways, this is an origin story for your relationship with playwright August Wilson. You were the costume designer for the pre-Broadway and Broadway productions. Tell us about that experience. Was this your introduction or first time meeting August Wilson?
Yes, it was. I was in my third year at Yale Drama School studying design, both set and costumes. And my teachers, my wonderful teachers, Ming Cho Lee and Jane Greenwood, assigned me to design the costumes for the piano lesson. And I just happened to be a third year. You know, each of us gets an opportunity to design at the Yale Rep. And August was a visiting artist who had, I think this was his fourth collaboration with Lloyd Richards. And I happened to just win. For me, I won the lottery. I just loved August's work. I loved meeting him, and upon meeting him, I discovered that he was just a very humble person, and he cared a lot about all of the designers' work, about the other artists, and my gosh, he had a million stories, and I just, got regaled by all those stories, and just, you know, uh, that was just a wonderful meeting of minds and heart for me.
Talk about your creative journey as a costume designer and how you found this career.
Yeah, it's just very strange. I started being a art major, and I had thought of being an artist for a really long time. I had spent some time in Europe, and there I saw a few theater productions. And I don't know about you two, but I sat down in that chair and I started watching a theater production, and I instantly thought, I can do that. And it really worked out for me really well because, if you're an artist, you work in a studio all by yourself, and, you create your own mythology and your own stories about your work. But doing, work in theater, you get handed a story. You get handed people to collaborate with you. So you're not always in a studio by yourself. And you have most importantly, you have deadlines. And so you have to have things ready and done by a certain time. I found that, I really wanted to have that element of being social with other artists and trading stories and ideas. Um, and once I started doing theater, there was no turning back. I loved it.
Yeah, we've hosted Eric Winterling on this podcast who makes costumes. He's a maker
Yes.
um, for Broadway shows and
Yeah.
television and film. So costumes it's a subject that's popular with
Yeah.
period
It's a very
drama.
social art form
Yes.
too. Yes.
So, we recently saw the new film version of The Piano Lesson, and it was really resonating. A number of the themes are really resonating with us. One is about legacy and how do you honor and use legacy. And you're the holder of your husband's playwriting legacy through the August Wilson Legacy LLC. Talk a little bit about what that involves and what your hopes are for the August Wilson legacy and its mission.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. It's such a big, I consider it a big job, but it's also a big gift. While August was ill before he passed away, he said, I'm letting you handle the legacy, the August Wilson estate at that time. And I was like just floored, because even then, of course, I'm biased, but I consider him the most important playwright of the 20th century, and the keeper of so many just important historic stories that tell uh, America's history. And so I was handed this, and it's a big responsibility. Say I approve all of the work that is being done of August Wilson throughout the country, both amateur and professional. And I also, am the keeper of the flame, and with working with Denzel Washington with the film, and with Malcolm, they both have such respect for August's work. And I got a chance to read the manuscript or the adaptation, and I was able to add a few of notes to Malcolm, things that I knew from August that perhaps Malcolm didn't know. Um, but it's been now 19 years. On October 2nd, we marked 19 years since August passed away, since I've been doing this work. And uh, it's it's uh, it's been a beautiful journey. It really has. We have marked so many, milestones. For example, the archive being available at the University of Pittsburgh. So I've had a mental list of things to mark. And I've also written a mission statement that I wanted to read to you guys, because it really uh, talks about, you know, what I feel is my mission. Um, the August Wilson Legacy LLC seeks to preserve and advance Wilson's universal teachings, encompassed in the American Century Cycle, by welcoming all audiences and theater artists to this literary legacy which he bestowed upon us. Building on traditional interpretations, we encourage artists to explore his plays with a fresh approach in order to discover deeper levels of meaning for the world of today. We strongly hold Wilson's words as a path toward social justice, a balm to our racial struggle, a joyful celebration of Black culture, and a crucial instrument in the affirmation of our humanity.
I love that mission statement.
Yeah.
It's one that I wrote, and I've been, trying to hold it true for myself all these years.
Yeah. Now, one of the things we note is that most of August Wilson's plays are set in Pittsburgh. And we were wondering, in addition to the fact that, yes, we know he was from Pittsburgh and I think there was a little bit of influence by some other creative people who also called Pittsburgh home. How does Pittsburgh factor into telling the stories in his American Century Cycle? Is it more than just a setting?
It definitely is more than a setting. It is a microcosm, really, of what was going on in America. August grew up with a deep, deep sense of community. He knew uh, Miss Julie Burley down the street, who was married to Charlie Burley, who used to be a boxer. He was living in back of a store, which was the place where everybody bought their eggs and their, sandwich meat, etc. He, in his 20s, that's when he said, in his early 20s, he left his mother's house and he joined a bunch of poets that were in the Wiley Avenue poets tradition. He started a theater in Black Horizons, which was also in Pittsburgh. So, and at the same time, there was something else that was happening in Pittsburgh, which was there was city ordinance to, tear down the hill where he was living. So, in a way, he also experienced a a force from the government that was coming in and destroying the community that he had known from his childhood in much the same way that, people were experiencing that in a bigger plane such as United States. So for him, it is a world, but all of the people in this world have such humanity. He reveals all their hopes and dreams and all of their desires and the potential of their hard-earned work and their hearts. And so within this small, hill district, he is describing all of us. So basically he used the specifics of the world he knew in order to describe universal ideas.
Costanza, I'm going to put you on the spot here a bit, but I'm going to frame this question a little differently. Rather than say what's your favorite play, I recall how certain August Wilson plays had an impact on me, or I got a feeling about some things. For example, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom gave me an insight into the recording industry and
Yes.
all the politics and intrigue of that. And then I think of Fences, and there were some, I remember seeing the film with Denzel Washington and Viola Davis and hearing the audience respond to certain lines or people saying, oh, my father told me that, or a relative said just that, they're not supposed to like you, they're supposed to respect you.
Yeah.
And, so much of that resonated with what I could hear in the audience. Is there a play that resonates with you personally, or I'm not going to say it's a favorite, but just resonates with
With
you.
me, specifically, I have about 3 favorites for different reasons. One of my favorites is The Piano Lesson because that's the play that I met August with. Then I also have, Joe Turner's Come and Gone because it is just such a poetic, large landscape. And I think if I were to if I were to respond to your question truthfully, I would say that my favorite play is Joe Turner's Come and Gone. August, it had touched me really deeply before, but then later August told me that after he finished writing that play, he put his pen down and just tears were coming down his
Mm,
eyes and his face
Wow.
because
mm,
he had brought those bones walking on the water, you know? And in order to have those bones walking on the water, which are the bones of the slave trade, of the Middle Passage that didn't come, the people that didn't make it to the Americas. And August would say it's the world's largest cemetery. Those bones at the bottom of the water. Um, when I just understood that concept and understood how much it meant to him, and I understood how big this play is, I just fell in love with it all the more. And all of those Bynum speeches of walking on this landscape where his father's song came to him, and how the center of your being is embodied in a song. I would say that that's my favorite. But I also have Seven Guitars because Seven Guitars was the first play that August wrote when we were together as a couple. And he shared with
mm.
me so many of those characters' backstories. And as he was creating it, I actually saw the play being created in front of my eyes. And that was so, so special.
Wow, what an experience. Now, the piano lesson, um, having just recently read the play and seen the film and noting that there were some transformations, there were some shifts, there were some things that were changed because, you're going from stage to a cinematic, quote unquote, medium. So talk a little bit about its transformation from the stage play to the film, uh, both co-written by Malcolm Washington, as well as directed and produced by his father, Denzel. How did bringing this story to the screen alter the way that it comes to life, let's say, on the stage?
Oh, it's let's say the theater is audio art form. We get to experience everything through the words of the playwright. And in the film, we still have the words of the playwright, and they're magnificent. It's all poetry, but also we have the language of the visuals. And it is absolutely in August's writing that it was in the 4th of July when Papa Boy Charles and his 2 brothers, Doaker and Whining Boy, came to the house to steal the piano. It was on the 4th of July, and it was all these fireworks. But in this movie, that's how the movie opens. You can tell it's a white southern plantation. All these people gathered to celebrate the 4th of July, the founding fathers, celebrating this country while other folks are being enslaved, you know, and they have to come in and steal this piano. And you actually feel the danger. You feel the fact that this family is doing something completely uh, uh, underhanded, but they feel so convinced that the piano is theirs, and the piano goes away. So right away, we get a sense of, we are invested in the story of the piano and what's going to happen to it. And then later we see it in the north, in the city of Pittsburgh. So the film is telling us more of a story, and and we don't get to see or hear as many of August's monologues, but all of August's monologues are encapsulated within the visuals that we get. I also love when we get to see Boy Willie's father and him as a little boy, and they're touching the earth of the earth, and his father says, "What is the difference between land and dirt?" And they say, "Land is there forever," and that is not something in the play, but seeing that little boy learn this lesson, we get to really understand Boy Willie's passion and his absolute, him being absolutely convinced that he needs to sell this piano to buy some land. And we get all these close-ups, of the characters. We get to see their pain or their joy or their struggle. And so I think that Malcolm did a beautiful and most satisfying adaptation of the play. I love it.
Yeah, and you also even get a little bit of seeing the piano created.
Very much
the
so.
Carving of the
Yes.
ancestors that was beautiful.
The
too.
ancestors that that whole row of slaves that are being traded for the piano, they are real people, not things that we get from our imagination. So we get to see them as being the ancestors that come back to aid this family.
Yeah, because as I was mentioning to you before, seeing the play at the Kennedy Center, you don't really see those carvings from wherever we were seated. But, of course, for the stage, you have to make them look, you have to craft it a little different so people can see some depiction from wherever.
Absolutely. And that
sitting.
same piano is now at the Smithsonian African American Museum. So the same one that you saw on stage with Charles Dutton.
And I'll have to go check that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could feel the dramatic tension of it. It was great to see them moving that piano because this is not like stealing the silver.
Not at all.
If you're going to move a piano, take a piano, you're committed to something more than just this piano.
Yeah.
And I like the way that the film shows that this is something more than just an instrument.
Yeah, absolutely. And I keep thinking about the rough roads or the back roads, and the ways that they had to hide that piano. It's not easy to take a piano from, south. I think it's Mississippi, I believe, all the way to Pittsburgh. But it's something that was meant to be. And it's, that family being able to take their legacy back is just really so important in that story.
It's like the Harriet Tubman of piano movers.
That's right.
I used to play piano. This is why I'm starting to get into that.
You've been enjoying Historical Drama with the Boston Sisters, a podcast where we talk about historical drama series and films as windows to the past and mirrors of the present.
Visit our webpage at michonnebostongroup.com/Boston Sisters. Share this podcast. Join our historical drama community by signing up for our newsletter to stay up to date on future episodes and bonus content.
Now, back to our podcast conversation.
Going back to the film adaptations, Denzel Washington has now produced 3 adaptations of August Wilson's plays. And just for the audience and my playwriting friends, yes, the line from Fences was, they're not supposed to like you, they're supposed to do right by you. Yes. So I have to make that correction because I know I will hear from people.
Okay.
So the 3 plays, Fences, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, which had a beautiful opening scene as well.
Beautiful.
Yes. And now we have the piano lesson. It was recently reported, and you just touched on this, that Washington will be adapting Joe Turner's Come and Gone, which is set in 1910. What is your motivation for having these plays adapted into films, because some people can be so protective of things, like this
Very
is for the
much so.
stage and nothing else.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I read it to you in my mission statement,
Right.
basically, was, taking these stories and making them important for the world of today. And I think that even though August wrote the piano lesson in the mid 80s to the late 80s, um, and even though we had our Broadway opening in 1990 and then the revival in 2022, and it, I think, extended a little bit into 23, uh, I think that in each generation, they will see something, maybe some universal themes that are the same, but also other things that say something about the world of today. I think that we just went through an election, and our ancestors should be all telling us all the trouble and the energy and the blood, sweat, and tears, and even the deaths that happened to be able to vote. And I'm saying all our ancestors, because these are American stories. As much the American century cycle is about all us Americans. August wrote, yes, stories that had have to do with the African American experience, but in any story of the oppressed is the story of the oppressor. And so, as I said, we just went through an election, and there so many Black ancestors went through so much in order to vote, and to now see a few people who didn't want to vote or who didn't appreciate the honor that it is to vote is a shame, if you ask me. Uh, what the piano lesson tells us is we need to listen for to our ancestors to know how to proceed, how to go forward. And I think that and so much more is present in the piano lesson for new audiences. So what I hope to achieve is for new people to understand and appreciate and have sort of a I guess, a deeper knowledge of who August Wilson was, and for how important his plays are, and in turning them into films. I also love the fact that new artists are entering these plays. I don't know how old Malcolm was when we had this play in Broadway, or even if he was born, but uh, but for him to come to this play or this work, and for him to say, "Oh my gosh." That's what life was like in Pittsburgh in those days, and to reimagine what those characters went through, um, and for new audiences to come and say, "I know now who August Wilson is," and they can tell their children, and these films will live on forever. The art of the theater is ephemeral. It goes away, and people will tell you, like both of you will tell me, how wonderful the play was with Rock Dutton, Charles S. Dutton, but it's gone. But now we have these performances on film, and I hope that they live for a really long time.
Yeah. Well, Charles Dutton did record it was it for CBS?
Yes, actually that was a Hallmark Hall of Fame
A Hallmark.
film.
Okay.
Yeah, which is very different than this film.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I asked you about what resonates, it's interesting how the piano lesson, after seeing this film, and Malcolm Washington, kudos to him,
Absolutely. And Virgil Williams, who also
and Virgil
co-wrote.
Williams,
Yes.
that it's resonating with me in a new and different way than it did, maybe because I'm older, or
Yeah.
maybe because of what's going on now, but definitely it's touched me in a way that it hadn't before.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
And
so. I
yeah,
think, when I first encountered this play, I was definitely a much younger woman. And now I respond so much more um, uh, from the deeper sense of who I am as an older woman to Berniece. And, when she says, "Look at this piano, look at it. Your mama spent, you know, uh, she took the blood and she rubbed it into the piano, and she spent 17 years in an empty bed, without her husband. Her husband got killed over the piano." And when I hear that, I just, I totally, it resonates so much. I've spent 19 years without my husband,
Mm.
and yeah, yeah, I think that it depends on how old you are, what your life journey has been, to see different things these these plays, but they don't lack in depth. I always told August, you can dig as deep as you want to dig, and you still discover something new in these plays.
Yeah, you talked about ancestors, which was Michelle and I both, when we saw the film, said that was one of the most powerful things that we were taking away. And as you were talking, it made me realize that August Wilson is an ancestor speaking to us through these plays.
Yes, very much so.
And another theme that runs through the piano lesson is the story of migration. Berniece has migrated to Pittsburgh. She with her uncle Doaker. Whining Boy has, been off in Kansas City and trying to make a recording career.
Yes.
And boy Willie's coming up, but his dream is to also go back
Yes.
and get some land. Um, and what I'm wondering is what this story, what the piano lesson has to say about the migration story and its relationship to the American dream.
Mhm.
This thing that we hear
Yeah,
about, that we say it draws people across our borders. It's part of our mythos.
very
Um,
much so.
so what what do you see as the what's it revealing about the American story and the American dream?
Oh, um, well, I think that August wrote. If you really look at all of the plays, all his plays, he speaks about migration in each one of them. Especially as it progresses through the um, the 20th century. Even in the first play, which is Gem of the Ocean, which is set in the 1900s, you have a character that's coming up from the South and, looking for a better life, seeking a job, and he sort of gets a job at the steel mill. Um, what August is talking about is um, a legacy of Black people all through that 20th century giving up their ancestral South and coming up North. However, in the piano lesson, he really provides us with two options, two different ways of looking at it. With the two characters of Boy Willie and Lymon. Boy Willie wants to sell that piano and go back south because he wants to farm the land. Why should he learn something new when he already knows how to farm? And he's probably a wonderful farmer. He knows the earth. He's part of that land. What was handed down from his father is the knowledge of how to farm the land. But then we have the character of Lyman who, says they treat you better up here, and he's going to make a new life. And that is a very difficult and painful separation of this friendship. Um, but that's very purposely there, in a comical way. We get to see Lyman experiencing the city, sort of buying a new suit that doesn't fit him, but somebody tells him that you need a new suit to be in the city, and these new shoes that don't fit him, and he's making very conscious choices to become citified, and he's going to stay there absolutely. In the end, we know that. August had a very interesting perspective on all of this. He felt that if Black people had stayed in the South, the power and the decisions and the um, political network would have been a lot more powerful had it all stayed in the South.
Hmm.
And he instead is writing about the disbursement of a lot of Black people around the country, with different pockets of being represented. But he always imagined what a much more powerful representation, what it might have been had people stayed in the South. And something that people don't know very much is that he was pro Boy Willie, you know? Like he wanted Boy Willie to sell that piano in order to buy his land. But August Wilson, in his writing, he channeled so much energy. He channeled also the female energy of his sister's choice to have the piano be a symbol of her family's fight for freedom, and also representing the family and the legacy and the ancestors being represented within the piano. And I think Malcolm does such a good job of having those spirits come out of the piano, out of the plunking of those strings. That wakes up the spirits, and it's just so beautiful. But those spirits are from the South, So yes, the story of the Great Migration is definitely very present in all of those plays. And no matter what your feeling about it is, your opinion, August wrote for everybody.
Yeah. It feels like August Wilson and the writer Charles Blow would have a very interesting conversation, because Charles Blow also feels that Black people should migrate back to the South.
Yes.
And build political power.
Yes.
So I guess in that
There you
sense,
go.
August Wilson was really prophetic.
Yes, I think so. He was always a visionary as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And it almost sounds like how people describe when people leave countries who have skills or have professional degrees, etc., the brain drain.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like. And another thing, speaking of history, what I noticed in the film, I saw a calendar on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And it said July 1936.
36.
And I was thinking that was the time of the Dust Bowl. So when we're talking about dirt and land and migrations, it's there in that story as well.
Yes, absolutely. People go back to places for the land, and people leave places for the land. That is all so much part of American history. And that thinking that it's better over there.
Mm-hmm. And also, when you look at what's happening with the changes in climate globally, people are leaving land for other lands because of what's happening to the planet.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I was on Boy Willie's side too this time. I think I saw Bernice's side when I saw the play. But this time I was really thinking, well, what is the role of legacy? And why shouldn't he sell the piano? And so it was very interesting, even seeing the difference in me in how I was viewing the characters and the positions they were taking around the piano.
Okay, that'll be an audience poll. Whose side are you on, Berniece?
Yes, exactly.
Boy
Team Berniece or Team Boy Willie,
Yeah, right. But it's an interesting conversation, because
it is
as someone who has played musical instruments, I could see Bernice's point of view as someone who loves history and appreciates my ancestral, beginnings or my ancestors. I could see Bernice's position, but I can see in terms of where are we going, or how do we, build on what we have. I can see Boy Willie's position as well.
Yeah, totally. And I can also think about it from Bernice's point of view. I think that what Avery tells her is turn this into an instrument of the Lord. Turn this into an instrument, which I imagine of song, and the word song in the August Wilson world means more than just a song. It's your story, your inner being. Have voice for it. So I can imagine this piano being used in Avery's new church, but also down the line for, the Black protest songs. This could be the piano that will also play those songs down the line for in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, all the way down to Black Lives Matter.
Yeah. Now, speaking of the historical significance, not only of this play, but all the things you just talked about, we're getting close to 2026 or 2026 when the United States will mark the 250th anniversary of its independence. August Wilson has written an American, let's emphasize, American century cycle that presents the experiences of Black people in the 20th century from 1900 to maybe 1990.
Yeah.
Actually, 2000s, because he had his last play was 97.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. He's quoted as saying, put them all together and you have a history. What do August Wilson's plays reveal about America's history and who we are as a nation?
Well, when you hold all the plays together, they can fit in two hands like this. And they're holding all the plays together, they're heavy, you know? So I'm just saying this as a metaphor. You hold all the plays together, and they start out being Gem of the Ocean in 1904 to Radio Golf 1997, and these are the stories of people all through the plays. August very specifically stayed away from historical characters. For example, he wrote a 60s play, and people thought, oh, of course you're going to write about Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. And he said, no, I'm going to set this play in this coffee shop in the 1960s in the Hill District. Martin Luther King is mentioned in the play. Malcolm X is mentioned in the play. But these are stories of ordinary people living their lives, having ambitions that are large and small, dreams that are as important to them as they are to us. These are people who have had scars. A lot of people have scars in August's plays. They are the pain and the painful moments that they have lived. But there's also always a redemption factor in all these people's stories. He I think that when you read each play, it has to do with that particular decade of American history. And you walk a mile in their shoes. And so if you happen to sit down and see all 10 plays, you will have had an incredible span of the 20th century, as a regular person, not necessarily like telling the story of George Washington, let's say, or anybody like that. So I think that what he's done is just an amazing feat, because he is telling an American story. He is representing the history of America, but he's doing it with these very recognizable settings. And in each one, he represents people in their full potential. It's, as I said in my mission statement, and it's a celebration of the Black experience, and how important the Black experience is in American history, how intertwined it is, and how important it is to have some kind of peace in racial relations for the future, and how important it is to give these characters their space and their moment shining in the sun, because all of us deserve that. All of us Americans.
Well, thank you, Constanza, for this conversation about your work with August Wilson's plays and this new film adaptation of The Piano Lesson.
Oh, thank you both. And may I say that August would love both of you because
Oh,
because you are interested in history, and he always thought the future is no place to be without knowing your history. Uh,
oh.
and so your work is very appreciated.
And his work is very appreciated by Taquina and I forever.
Yes. And
Wonderful.
as we look towards 2026, we will be coming back to August Wilson and
Yes.
his plays, the ones that have been adapted for film, because we do feel that one of the best ways to learn history is to know what was the impact of what was going on in whatever historical period on the lives of ordinary people. I think
That's
that's where
right.
we see ourselves mirrored in history.
That's right. That's right. And that's what, that's how important community was for him. It was within one person's life is a whole universe. And he really paid respect and homage to that.
The Piano Lesson, based on the Pulitzer Prize-winning play by August Wilson and directed by Malcolm Washington, is available for streaming on Netflix with a subscription. Film adaptations of August Wilson's plays Ma Rainey's Black Bottom with Viola Davis in the title role and Fences featuring Denzel Washington and Viola Davis are also available for streaming. Do an online search to find where you can watch these films. Go to our webpage for this podcast for additional resources about The Piano Lesson and August Wilson's American Century Cycle at MichonneBostonGroup.com/Boston Sisters.
Share this podcast with someone you know who will enjoy the conversation. Sign up for the e-newsletter to stay up to date on new podcasts, bonus episodes, and historical drama-related activities. You can find the link on our webpage at MichonneBostonGroup.com/Boston Sisters. Subscribe to Historical Drama with the Boston Sisters wherever you enjoy your favorite podcasts. Leave a review. Michonne and I hope you'll give the podcast 5 stars. Follow us on Instagram at Historical Drama Sisters and on Facebook at Historical Drama Boston Sisters. Like and share Historical Drama with the Boston Sisters on your social media.
This is Michonne Boston.
And this is Taquina Boston.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Historical Drama with the Boston Sisters, a podcast about historical films and series dramas. Visit our webpage at MichonneBostonGroup.com/Boston Sisters.
Tell us what historical dramas you're watching. Who knows? We may do a show about it. Sign up for our newsletter, subscribe to the podcast, and share it with the people you know who binge on historical drama.
Historical Drama with the Boston Sisters is brought to you by the Michonne Boston Group. The views and opinions expressed on Historical Drama with the Boston Sisters are those of the speakers and do not represent the positions or views of the Michonne Boston Group, its clients, or affiliates. This is Michonne Boston.
And this is Taquina Boston. Thank you for listening.